1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, I love counting, whatever the amount.
Hello everybody, the Lawn Gnome is here and welcome to your September edition of 10 for 12. And we're going to talk about the top 10 DCU direct-to-DVD films. And I said that we were going to do that because just this past month we got the 20th film in the library. I really had to take a look at each and every one of them, and I've watched each and every one of them. It took a while too, but I've come down with 10 that I really think are the best, and I'm going to explain why. And also just want to let you know, these films do not include Batman Mask of the Phantasm, nor does it include Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. While they are two excellent films, and I highly recommend that you see them, they are not part of the DCU animated film library that began in 2007. So you have to cross those off your list, and believe me, I regret the fact that I would have to do that. But I've rounded it down to 10 films, and I'm going to talk, but I'm also going to let the clips do the talking. So sit back, relax, and if you haven't seen some of these yet, prepare to be amazed. Number 10 is Justice League War. It was one of the first films after Bruce Timm decided to step down as the executive producer of this project and gave it to Sam Register. We saw the bar get pushed, and get pushed hard. It's an action film with plot. You basically have the Justice League meeting each other for the first time in the years of the New 52, and they really don't like each other, I hate to say it. But the best part is how well they play off one another. I would have to say that the highlight of the movie, the chemistry that plays off of Green Lantern and Batman. And even Shazam has some great one-liners voiced brilliantly by Sean Astin. And that's why it's just a great and enjoyable film to watch. And it also is the one that is going to be getting a sequel, while there aren't that many sequels in this library. Number 9 is Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. One of my favorite things in science fiction is the concept of the alternate reality. The fact that based on a decision that you may have made in the past, another world was created when you did the exact opposite of the decision that you chose. What you get is you get a story that really originated in the 1960s and came into fruition with Crisis on Infinite Earths in the 1980s. But this movie brings us back to the crime syndicate. Believe it or not, this was originally supposed to be another and possibly final season of Justice League if it was in fact going to get renewed. It was the story of what took place between Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. And if you actually do watch it, it kind of makes sense. I mean, look, Hawkgirl's not there. Of course, we have Hal Jordan instead of Jon Stewart, but that's the only major change that they really made in this story. They have to go into a world which is flipped around. The villains are the ones with superpowers, and Lex Luthor is the hero. It gets some great lines and great action sequences, but the fact that you get to see all of these heroes in reverse is really what makes the movie. And the best part about it is you get so many surprises. The shine in this movie is without a doubt Gina Torres and James Woods. I mean, James Woods gives you a dead, emotionless villain, and you don't get many villains like that. And I think that's what makes a villain a great villain. His lines just creep you out. If you want to see something like this, I highly recommend that Justice League Crisis on Two Earths is one that you take a look at. Number 8 is the newest addition to the library, Batman Assault on Arkham, the first DCU film to be based on a video game franchise. Not only did it come out in the 75th anniversary year of Batman, but this movie is a tribute to Batman as a whole. You got the Rogues Gallery, and if you really look carefully, you're going to see some really big surprises. But why is this movie so great? Because Batman is barely here. It's really all about the villains. The villains in Task Force X, and the villains that you see in Arkham Asylum. Batman Assault on Arkham is a winner. Number 7 is Wonder Woman. We had what most comic book fans were looking for. A story about another DC comic book hero, and not just anyone, a popular comic book hero. This is the origin story of Wonder Woman, being born, living amongst the Amazons, and finding out about man's world thanks to Steve Trevor, and in this film, played beautifully by Nathan Fillion. You get some of the best lines of the movie thanks to Nathan Fillion and his comedic timing. Throw in a whole bunch of other famous voices including Kerry Russell, Rosario Dawson, Virginia Madsen, and a villain in Alfred Molina and Oliver Platt, and you get a really good film. What's also great is the fact that it pays tribute to the Linda Carter show from the 1970s. It may not be the best, but it is fun, and it really is something that most of us have desired. A movie about Wonder Woman that is actually good to watch. Number 6. Justice League: The New Frontier. This is definitely one of the most original ones in the library, based on Darwin Cook's graphic novel of the same name. It goes back in time to the golden age of comic books and the silver age of comic books, seeing how heroes like Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman evolve, and how they incorporate new and upcoming heroes like the Flash and Green Lantern into their world. As a history fan, you'll appreciate it as much as being a comic book fan. This movie reminded me of the Mark Waid, Alex Ross graphic novel series from the 1990s, Marvels, the story of a human perspective on the Marvel superheroes. This is very similar to it, except it goes with one little plot twist. It's the heroes looking at the humans when they're not saving the day, and most of the time, it's the superheroes saying to the humans, "What in God's name is wrong with you?" The animation is also fantastic because it really comes right off the pages of the Darwin Cook novel, and I also love the fact that it takes place in the 1950s and 60s just because you get to see these heroes in these classic uniforms. Most Superman fans have never seen Superman in this uniform with the black and red S. Throw in a couple of excellent voices including Lucy Lawless, Neil Patrick Harris, David Boreanaz, and Kyle MacLachlan, and you definitely get one that is original. Not the best, but definitely original. Number 5 is Superman Doomsday. I have to include the very first one that came out, just because of the fact that this was Bruce Timm and company saying, okay, let's see how this works. It's the first time, besides Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, when we actually get an animated movie that had a PG-13 rating, and ever since then, most of them have. This movie pays tribute to one of the greatest comic book stories that really shocked the world, and that's the death of Superman. I really didn't want to see this at first. Maybe it was because of the fact that I'm not as strong a Superman fan as I am a Batman fan or an X-Men fan, but one of my friends actually said I had to see it just because. When I took a look at it, that was when I was sold on this whole project in general. I mean, you get a great battle between Superman and Doomsday. The movie also has a great cast, even though it's not the usual voices, because that was another thing that this project was all about. Using other voices to voice these characters, because none of these films were supposed to be connected. They're supposed to be on their own. You got Adam Baldwin as Superman, James Marsters as Lex Luthor, and you've also got Anne Heche as Lois Lane, who I have to admit was probably the most impressive, just because of the fact that there were scenes that would really tug at your heartstrings. The movie is not the exact depiction of the actual death of Superman's story. It's a more simple version, especially for people who have never read the comic books. Lex Luthor doesn't even have a role in the story in the comic books, but he does have some of the better lines in this movie, and sometimes often creepy. This is really the one that started it all, and if you want to see a really good Superman movie, I highly recommend Superman Doomsday. Number 4. Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. It is actually a loosely based prequel to Justice League War, and this was one of the first movies that really showed me how far that the DCU film library was going. This movie has a great story because it finally revolves around another famous superhero, the Flash. The story of the Flash just trying to fix one minor thing in his life, and this is where you realize being self-centered is not always a good thing. Another great thing about this movie is the fact that most of the voices of these characters are really not familiar faces. You really see an amazing story because Justice League Flashpoint was what created the New 52. It's a movie that involves intense moments, alcohol abuse, crazy violence, a lot of bad language, and probably one of the most unbelievable climax battles you will ever see in one of these films. There were certain points where I would literally try and look away, but I just couldn't stop watching because of what I was seeing. C. Thomas Howell actually voices the main antagonist in the film in Professor Zoom, and he definitely was a real big surprise for me because I think many people, especially if they grew up in the 80s, wondered where he went, and he did have some great scenes in this movie. It's got a lot of great tributes to a lot of the DC universe, some things that you're really gonna like, and some things that are really going to surprise you. But for me, it was Cary Elwes who voiced Aquaman that did it for me. See Flashpoint Paradox, you'll definitely be glad that you did. Number 3, Batman The Dark Knight Returns Parts 1 and 2. It got combined into one deluxe edition film, but basically, if you want the clear, perfect depiction from comic book to movie, that is The Dark Knight Returns. It is the exact same thing. So if you've read the story, you know exactly how this movie's gonna go. It's the story of Batman coming out of retirement because crime has gotten to an all-time high, and he feels that it's about time that he has to put the mask on and go back to what he was doing. The voice of Batman is someone new, it's Peter Weller, and he definitely fills the shoes very well. And you have some excellent additional voices in this film, but who really shines in this movie is Michael Emerson from Lost as the Joker. I mean, forget Jack Nicholson, forget Mark Hamill, heck, forget Heath Ledger. This Joker scared me, because this was the true depiction of a true insane maniac whose one objective was to drive Batman to the breaking point. You just can't look away from all of this craziness that the Joker's doing in this movie. And it's a shame that he has such a small role. I mean, in the 4-part story, he's only in one part. You also get a great showdown between Batman and Superman, and you get some awesome visuals, some that are just right off the page of the comic book. But if there's one thing that I have to say about The Dark Knight Returns is, I wish that this movie would have been on the big screen, because I think that this was something that we were ready to see. But for what it is, I wish that they would have at least had it come out as one piece on its own, because I originally got them in both halves, and then when I saw the deluxe edition, I just said to myself, nah, this is too much, I liked it just as 2 parts. But hey, everybody's entitled to their opinions, but my opinion on The Dark Knight Returns, it's not the best, but it's definitely one of the best comic book movies, especially for Batman. Number 2 is All-Star Superman. This one is really near and dear to my heart. One of the things that most of us who are fans of these animated series and videos are the fact that this was the movie that came out right around the time that Dwayne McDuffie passed away. He was the brainchild behind Justice League and Static Shock. So before Justice League Doom came out, which was after All-Star Superman, we had the last one that he really was a part of in terms of bringing it to life. It's also the very first and only one to give a PG rating, and I think a lot of people really don't like that. But when you watch the movie, this is what you get. A very PG-13 plot, but the only reason why it's PG is because the violence just isn't as intense. What I like about it is that it looks at Superman in a completely different light, one that we really haven't seen in a while, and it also gives us a lot of tributes to some of the most amazing things that have made Superman Superman. Like, did you know that Up in the Sky didn't come out until the golden age of television with the George Reeves show and the Max Fleischer cartoon? Heck, did you even know that before those things came out, Superman didn't even fly in the comic books? It has great tributes to a lot of his mythos, like the Lost City of Kandor and the Phantom Zone. You also get a great story with Lex Luthor, who is brilliantly voiced by Anthony LaPaglia. Throwing Christina Hendricks as the voice of Lois Lane, you may get some cheesy moments that will make you tear up a little bit. But one thing that I can say about All-Star Superman is, it's up there because it's just that much different from the rest. It doesn't revolve around the action. It doesn't revolve around the typical Superman stuff. It revolves around Superman being faced with his greatest challenge and what he has to do before that challenge, unfortunately, is going to come to an end that's not in his favor. I'm not going to give it away, but if you want to see something that's really going to make you feel good, and especially if you're a Superman fan that hasn't seen this yet, All-Star Superman really is a great, memorable movie. And that leaves us to number 1, and that is Batman Under the Red Hood. So why is this one better than The Dark Knight Returns? Why is this better than Batman Gotham Knight? And all the other Batman stories that came before it and after it? I'll tell you why. Because of the fact that this movie revolves around Robin. This movie takes place after one of the greatest Batman stories that ever happened in his history, and that is a death in the family. Heck, it even shows a scene from the end of Death in the Family. And it's basically about something coming back from Batman's past to haunt him, and in the end, it leaves Batman to make one of the biggest decisions of his life. Robin is a great character. I know there are so many people that just knock him up and down, leading all the way back to the 1940s when the comics had to get campy thanks to the comic book code. But think about it. Robin has a similar origin to Batman. He's the one that's preventing Batman from going over the edge. He's the one that makes every boy and girl get so pissed off that he's Robin and they're not. And when Robin has to take that risk and realize that he can be as good or possibly better than Batman, it doesn't always go well in Robin's favor, and he or she has to hope to God that Batman is there to catch the fall. And unfortunately, when he's not there, it doesn't always end well. The voice cast is fantastic, including Bruce Greenwood as Batman, who is probably my personal favorite alongside Kevin Conroy. You've also got Jensen Ackles as the Red Hood, Neil Patrick Harris as Nightwing. I mean, I love Neil Patrick Harris. John DiMaggio voices the Joker. He basically is Mark Hamill with a different voice, with a little bit more of a mature overtone. But he does play him very well, and for this movie, I'm really glad that they gave him an opportunity to try and voice the Joker, because Mark Hamill was just getting a little tired of doing it all the time, and I'm glad that he was one of the first that really brought an influx of other actors to actually try and voice the Joker, and they're all doing a pretty good job. Wade Williams is the Black Mask, who is the second piece of the story that loosely connects the Red Hood with Batman, and this story is really good because he also provides more intense comic relief. He's insane, but he's more of a businessman. But why is this movie better than all the others, besides the fact that it's about Robin? It's Jensen Ackles. He's the reason why this movie is so great. He breathes so much life into Jason Todd in a whole other life that just makes me incredibly amazed that this is another movie that didn't make the big screen, or the fact that he's only doing Supernatural and nothing else at this point in time. He's a great actor, and it shows even though he's just contributing his voice to this character. But alongside Batman, alongside Joker, you just absolutely are encapsulated by his work, and it's great. It still holds up, even though it's been out for quite a number of years. And I don't know if there ever is going to be another film that will actually pass it, but for now, Batman Under the Red Hood is my #1 in the DCU film library. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching this great 10 for 12. I'm sure it's pretty lengthy. I haven't even been watching the clock, but I'm probably going to want to consider doing another one of these as time moves on. I don't know how many films are going to come out. I don't know exactly what they're going to be about, but I had fun with this, and I love these movies with all my heart, because I love DC Comics alongside other comic book franchises, and I absolutely love Bruce Timm and what he's done since the Batman animated series came out, and how far he's brought the DC comic characters and how much life he's breathed into them. And I'm really hoping that Zack Snyder is going to do more and take it to the next level when the DC universe finally becomes a cinematic universe that we all want to see. Thank you guys for watching. Actions speak louder than words.